You there, Alyssa?
Yes, I am.
All right, we're here. We're ready to get going.
Sounds good.
Welcome, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Kingston Common Council's Finance and Audit Committee to order at 6:41. No, it's not 6:41. 6:35. 6:35 on the 13th day of November 2024. We've got a number of items to discuss tonight. All of them scintillating, exciting, vital to the nation's health. All right, first item of business, the comptroller's update.
Thank you, Rennie. Sorry for emailing this out a little bit later in the day. I do have hard copies. I think everyone has them. Bob, do you need? You have, there you go. So not a lot has changed since the last monthly update. In terms of revenue, the big ticket items, the sales tax, the trend of staying somewhat level or just above last year at this time continues. The last payment we received was 2% over the same payment from the prior year. On a year-to-date basis, we're 2.63% over the prior year with sales tax. The positive, it's just short of $400,000 over the prior year level. So the growth, obviously, it's not there where it was in the prior years. It's still growing at more than historical norm of 2-3% a year, but we're not seeing that huge growth. Continue to see pressure on the expenses. You'll see in the first bullet point that we are through 75% of the year. We have spent just about 74% of the budget. So 75% of the year we spent about 74. This time last year we spent just short of 68% of the budget. So our expenses are certainly tracking higher than they were in the prior year. Some of that is intentional. We've had some intentional spend down to fund balance. Budget certainly is tighter in some areas. We're seeing, bringing on ambulance service. We're seeing, overtime expenses running a lot. Some other expenses picking up as well. Our hospital medical insurance is running a little tight with budget. In the past, we've had some positive variances there. The budget for 2024 was a little tighter. So right now we're on pace to exceed budget of hospital medical insurance somewhere between $100,000 and $250,000. That number is coming down. I expect that to get closer to closer to budget by the time we wrap up the year, but I certainly think it'll be in the red at the end of the year. So that's kind of where we're at. Overall, I would expect our financial results when we do wrap up 24. It's going to be a number of months yet before we do that, but there's certainly going to be tighter than it was in 23. In 23, we had a surplus. In 24, I'm not projecting that at this time. I would project that based on use of fund balance that, it's not going to be a surplus. At least not what I see so far. We have intentionally used fund balance in a number of areas. Part of our taking action on the fund balance policy, paying off debt, putting in ambulance service into play, some other areas, but I'll keep you updated on that. Other revenue sources are pretty favorable. Parking revenue is favorable, interest revenue is favorable. Interest rates are starting to drop, so there's a little pressure on next year's budget. But this overall, our fund balance was over that 20% threshold, and we're trying to bring that down. I do think when we wrap up 24, we're going to see that number come down. I'm hoping, not that I'm hoping for a deficit, but I'm hoping that we can, kind of shave that number down a little bit. So that's all part of, the mayor and the council's plan to do that, right? So that's where we're at.
Any questions, comments?
I guess by shaving the fund balance down, where would it be ideal for us to get to in terms of fund balance?
I ideally would like to see, I think it's always going to ebb and flow because it's going to go up and then it takes, like, for example, by the time we have 24's numbers, we're going to be midway through 25, right? So by the time the council takes action on the 24 results, we're already gonna have history in 25. Ideally, we're gonna sit somewhere in the 18 to 20% range, I think is a good number. I think it's financially, it puts us in a good position to have liquidity, to fund projects, to pay off debt, to meet operating expenses, to handle emergencies. But it's not such a large number where it's offensive to taxpayers that the city's, sitting on, taxpayer money, right? So I think somewhere in that range is a sweet spot, so to speak. We're not too far off of it right now. I mean, we're in very low 20s. But I would like to see it come down just a little bit.
Could we use some of the fund balance to cushion some of the costs of the next year's budget?
We have. So when you look at the 2025 budget, we've used more fund balance than what's been used in the past. Ideally, looking forward to 26 and forward, we would not use that much fund balance to balance the budget. I mean, obviously, when you use a certain amount of fund balance to balance the budget, that's your starting point for the following year's budget. Right, so you have to at least have a positive budgetary performance of that dollar amount. Otherwise, you're going to start draining fund balance, right? So, like for example, use $2 million to balance the budget. The following year, you have to exceed budget by $2 million to pay that fund balance back. If you don't, your fund balance levels go down. So the greater amount of fund balance you use to balance the budget, it puts more pressure on budgetary results, right? So ideally, for different reasons, we used a little bit more for 2025 budget. I've explained that at the budget meetings. But 26, and then looking forward, I'm hoping that we can bring that number down a bit. It probably will have to be a gradual, approach. You can't just take it down. There's just, I don't see the number shaping up where we'd be able to bring that number down a lot for the following year's budget, but if we can bring it down, some distance towards what we've used in the past. Like in the 24 budget, we used just under 1.9 million. That's probably where we want to be long term. But a lot of it just depends on how conservative or aggressive the budget is. The more aggressive your budget is, the less fund balance you really should be using. The less fund balance that the city has in its coffers, the less fund balance you should be using, right? So, looking at the 2025 budget, the city was sitting over 20% fund balance. Budgetary performance has been pretty positive in the past, so we felt comfortable using what we used for the 25 budget, but we'll have to reevaluate, this time next year, what we're comfortable using for the 26 budget.
When you say aggressive, what do you mean by as aggressive as we can go?
With the budget?
Yeah.
Well, there's, in the budget, there's some fixed costs, right? I mean, there's some fixed cost salaries. We know what, salaries are. There's other figures that are estimates, and an estimate can be conservative or it can be aggressive. A sales tax figure. I mean, sales tax, I don't have a crystal ball on what sales tax may be. Someone else sitting in my chair could recommend a lower sales tax revenue number or a higher number, right? The higher number being more aggressive, the lower number being more conservative. In the past, I feel like we've been relatively conservative with our revenue projections. For the 25 budget, they're slightly less conservative. So that's really what I'm referring to. The same thing can be said on expense side, right? I mean, there's some expenses that are estimates. It could be vehicle fuel. We've talked about utility bills. We don't have a crystal ball as to what they're going to be. You don't necessarily, if you budget for worst case, what you think is the worst case, utility costs are going to skyrocket. You budget that number. That's a very conservative estimate. But when you budget overly conservatively, lends itself to creating more fund balance and more positive results, right? And then you have this, you know, the fund balance issue that we run into. So, you know, the balance is trying to find that sweet spot where, you know, we're not too aggressive, not too conservative, where the actual results are coming in closer to what we budgeted, and that's the goal. Sorry for the diatribe.
No, thank you. It's good.
We feel so abused. No, thank
You want to
you.
talk any more numbers? Give me a call.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay.
we can move on to the reports. We have the update. Building safety, you want to do some magic with money over there, Steve?
Sure.
What do you got for us?
Yeah, we go.
So I have a few transfer items, basically for some housekeeping kind of stuff. Few accounts that we've either overspent by a little or it looks like we're going to overspend. Some of them are contracted prices for our and copiers or something, or items like that. We did have staff member leave our department, so there are some transfer from data processing of 3,000 retirement for 3,000 and additional part-time transfer 906 to cover that same retirement amount. Something that we certainly can't plan for in our budget. Rest of the items are coming out of our part-time line. Telephone costs are a little bit over. Our postage went over by a decent amount this year, $1,000. That's just all the enforcement efforts that we've increased. We're sending out a lot more mailings for that and our commercial property inspections. So that's where the increase for that came from. And then vacation buyback went over by 330. That's kind of it. It all results in zero financial impact.
Okay, any questions for Steve?
No?
Here are no questions, then I'll call for a motion to adopt.
Motion.
Shabbat, second by Sarah Paskey. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you all. Thanks, Steve.
Have a good
Next
evening.
item is something similar about the transfer in civil services. The ghost Jackie DeSico is here, so if you have any questions, you can direct her to the chair there. She actually had called me earlier saying that she was not going to be able to make it. So this is a similar deal of moving money around in her budget in order to balance accounts. And so the estimated financial impact will be $0. Is everybody okay with that? Motion by Steve Shabbat. Second by Drew Andrews. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Third item, or rather the fourth item, is restore grant application for Headstone Gallery. Speaking of ghosts.
No, I'm here.
No, no, Headstone. Headstone.
Oh, gotcha. So this is to request authorization to submit an application to Empire State Development for their next Restore New York Communities round for Headstone Gallery, which is an art gallery and ceramic studio located on Hurley Ave near the stadium. They're in the process of purchasing property at 289 Foxhall Ave to expand their operations. That building is currently vacant. They want to use this space to be able to accept larger slip casting projects, add teaching space, and offer programming. And this request is also to allow us to enter into an agreement and expend funds in the first instance should we win this grant.
And this is another one of those that we're just sponsoring, basically. Okay, any questions?
No, I'll just make a comment that Headstone Gallery is in my ward,
Okay.
and I visited it. The people who run it seem great, and they have a very good business plan. And they've got classes there. There are always people there. They have excellent exhibitions, and plus they actually take on projects, commissions, so they also make money. So they really, yeah, so they're
Same gallery.
Headstone Gallery.
And they're called Headstone Gallery because
I have no idea.
that used to be, that building used to be a manufactory of headstones.
I have no, thank you for that.
So literal,
Interesting.
right? Tidbit. Any questions about this for Natalie?
Just a quick question about pass-throughs. Do we receive some type of a portion, 5, 10%, nothing, or is it just a straight pass-through?
This is straight pass through.
Oh, okay, all right.
And that's just because of the city is eligible to receive this money, so it flows off.
Exactly right, yeah.
It's funneled through the network.
Yes.
Anyway, I
Okay,
encourage you to go visit that. It's really a great place.
we have a motion to adopt by Steve Shabbat, second.
Second,
Second by Sarah Panosti. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Oh, sorry. This is a request for authorization for the mayor to submit an application and execute an agreement and any and all related documents related to a grant from the NYS Empire State Development Restore New York Communities Grant Program. That's a lot of New York in there. Round 9 in the amount of $300,000 for the Headstone Gallery Workshop Expansion Project. Authorization to expend funds in the first instance is also being requested. Headstone Gallery is responsible for the required 10% match, but it means zero financial impact for the city of Kingston. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
And the next item, the potential sale of 46 Grand Street. Oh, Steve.
Thanks. So this is just the opportunity to plant the item on the agenda. I'm not expecting any action tonight. But just wanted to just let everyone know that after, you may remember that a couple of years ago, the city common council provided 46 Grand Street to another nonprofit. In the end, that nonprofit didn't have the financial capability of moving forward with the project within the timeframe that the common council set. And so the building was given back to the city. And so Bartek and the Austin Housing Initiative led another RFP process to be able to solicit additional, uses of the building. He formed a committee. That committee reviewed the applications that came in. They then recommended the COOP concept to be awarded the opportunity to purchase the building. I believe that they proposed to purchase it for $1, and that the common council should entertain that. I spoke with Bartek. I met with the COOP concept, and one of my biggest requests of the group and of you all is to just ask you to make sure that you feel really comfortable with the fact that this nonprofit in particular has the funding and the ability and the expertise to be able to pull off the project. I think we learned from the last time that we really do want to make sure that we are able to work with an applicant that we're handing over a relatively rough building in relatively rough condition, and we don't want to have this obviously repeat again. And so with submitting this letter, I believe Bartek also then sent everyone on the council an opportunity to get to a link that had not only this full application, but also all of the other applicants, so that you can see all of that, and at your leisure, you can read through them all. And in particular, I just encourage you to invite the COOP concept to come and visit at one of
Yeah, I
your
was
future
thinking,
meetings
yeah.
to have a discussion. Bartek can connect you with them and to just be able to, have a process. And that's really all that tonight was, to just make sure that this got into your hands and that if anyone has any issues accessing the link that Bartek sent, let them know. But I just would encourage you guys to have a thorough look at what's being proposed and yeah. That's all really for this tonight. So,
That's Tina Turner.
Yeah.
From high school. She
Yeah.
does a lot of great work with kids. So, yeah, looking forward to having her come in and speak to us about the work that she's doing.
Great, I'll get in touch with Bartek and we'll get that set up for next month.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Should we interview more than one of the proposals?
well, so that is wholly up to you. So there was an RFP review team that was, put together. I don't know, I wasn't involved in this part, so I don't know if a council member was involved. We usually try to have at least one, so I don't know if it was.
One was.
Yes, and so that's generally, but there could be questions or concerns, or you guys could decide to go a different route. And at that point, if you decide, the COOP concept that was put forward doesn't have the capabilities or the money or whatever you decide, you could then go a different direction. But that's really up to you to decide. Because it is in essence the sale of a building, it is ultimately the responsibility of the common council to dispose of that building. And so this is one of the things that is really in your court.
So 2 points there to respond a little bit more to your question. I believe there were 4 applicants. And so normally what we do would be invite the winning one to make sure they're good. But if you look at all the documentation and you believe there's a second one that is worthy, then, I think that would be an okay thing to do. You'd invite, if there's relative consensus among council that, they should be given a shot or consideration. That's one thing. The other thing is we can reject all the proposals and decide that none of them are actually either feasible or appropriate. But then that just puts everything back out to a whole longer process. So that's the consequence.
I would like to hear from Coop and I would like to take the committee's recommendation seriously, but there are 2 others that I would like to hear from directly.
I would say look at the documentation.
I am.
I mean, everybody needs to.
Okay.
That's all I have, unless you have any other questions for me.
Right.
I'm really just a messenger tonight. Bartek's doing his great event next door, so I'm helping.
Yep. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing to act on, so.
No.
We're good. Then we can move on to budget transfer in the clerk's office. Thanks for letting us know that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing it.
Am I next too, or no?
Schedule.
Now, you're fee schedule. You jumped over the fee schedule.
It's not on this list.
It's online?
Yes, it should be on there. It's right under.
It's on,
It's not on the online one.
oh, not on the online?
Yes.
No, because I'm under.
I have the.
No, I just downloaded the online.
But since Steve is here, we could do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure. I'm gonna pass it around. This is just for folks who, I know I sent the version today, but this one is printed for you. The fee schedule, what we try to do is make sure that anything that we've updated or changed, we put in red. So everything that's in red is either change language or updated amount of dollars that are placed. And so this is a culmination of work that John and I do start when we meet with all of the departments, when we go over all of their budgets. The departments have recommendations, we make recommendations. The fees in here are then generally reflect with what we think we will bring in revenue in the budget. So it is important that, if the council decides to make any substantial changes here, from what's been proposed, it may also then have an impact on the revenue line in the budget that's also before you. So it's kind of like you'd have to address both things as you kind of go through the budget process. But we could, I don't know how the council has done this before. This is just the goal is to review this, and in order for it to be in effect by January 1st, when the new year starts, it's generally would be ideal if this could be passed at the same time as the budget.
Yeah.
So to keep it on that schedule, you guys have a lot of budget meetings between now and December, so I don't know if you have to pass it out tonight, but out of one of your finance meetings, it would be good if this was able to be voted on in December. Some of the biggest changes that I'll just highlight, there are some dollar values that have changed in some of the departments, but there are some sections that I'll just point out that are kind of larger. One is the fire department. We added a variety of costs that we've already, in essence, we've had, we just didn't have in the fee schedule. So when we would go out for a hazmat response or with our confined space responses, sometimes, in some instances, these were already kind of in the internal procedures, but we realized that they weren't in the schedule. And so that there's a bunch there to review. One of the new things also with the fire department that just occurred is that we now have the ability under a new state law to actually charge for EMS coverage when we don't transport. So if we get to a scene and all you sprain your arm and all you require is a sling, we can charge your insurance company for the sling. And so you'll see there's like the $250 rate and the $500 rate, which is for emergency transport coverage, which is new. So this will help us, I think, meet our revenue goal that we have in the budget. We don't know how often this will be used or how successful we will be billing, but it is new for New York State. So I think it's going to take a while for the insurance companies to kind of wrap their head around this new state law. But it is designed to be able to help all of our ambulance services in the state. Yeah.
What if they don't have insurance?
Yeah, and so if they don't have insurance, what we do is we have this common council passed financial aid policy that kind of goes over that if you don't have the funds, in essence, one, we can either enter into a payment plan so that if you don't have all of the funds at once, you can pay slowly over time, because that sometimes is what is needed for people. But if our financial aid policy also goes into like what would happen if you can't pay. And we can, go over that more in detail. So, yeah.
Under the fire department,
Yes.
the hazmat responses.
Yep.
Who is that fee levied on?
Generally the polluter in that case. So if,
Well, what if it's like an accident? Is it the insurance company?
most of the time where we have hazmat calls and are generally based on either like a tanker tips over, and that would go towards like the owner of the tanker.
Okay.
And I don't know if insurance, depending on their insurance, whether they would cover that or not, but we basically bill the individual responsible for the hazmat.
The owner of the property, whether that's asbestos or
Yeah,
a tanker.
and generally most of them for us are these like rolling over issues or a spill of some sort of gasoline or gas or something like that with a hazmat truck. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Questions? And the park program, is that the summer camp?
Yes,
That is-
yeah, that's the 7-week summer camp program, yeah. The other thing, just going through with parking,
Yes,
you'll
I
see there's a
noticed.
whole lot of new red in
Yes,
parking.
I
So
know. I saw that.
one of the things that you'll see is that we did propose some changes to a lot of fees that hadn't been updated in a very long period of time. And these are kind of our like most chronic parking complaints.
Right.
And whether it's double parking or restricted zones or parking in front of a fire hydrant, parking in an ADA space without an ADA tag. We put in the budget, and you'll see it when you get to City Hall, and we talk about parking, but we did add more money in the overtime line for them to be able to do more enforcement at nights and on weekends. And so, especially tackling some of these issues in particular. And so we just felt like $20 was really not, if someone is parking in an ADA or, in an ADA space, like that should be way more than
Exactly.
an over the limit, I forgot to pay the meter ticket, or blocking a fire hydrant, and so we felt like we needed to bring those in line with what other communities are charging, and we felt like, $50 is it really does send a message that we want to be able to, hold these types of, we want to have good behavior when it comes to parking,
Yes.
to the best of our ability.
Right, and these fees are enough so that if you actually got one of those tickets, you would probably not do it again.
And what we do is
What?
we,
I mean, yeah, you could.
We're trying.
I guess we could make it $100 and see if that.
I mean, I think we've all been to
We've
City
tried.
Hall just about every night this week and last week, and there's the same car parked in the bus stop lane in front of the fried chicken place. Same
I
car.
haven't noticed that. Okay.
I just wanted to add real quick
I
that
take note.
with these fees, just as the mayor alluded to, we do, not just the parking fees, but fees in general, where it's a fee that could be potentially compared to like another municipality, as we're setting fees, we try to look at A, our internal cost of what it costs the city to provide this service, and B, we look at what are neighboring communities charging. So with the parking, we did look at some of the neighboring communities, and we felt that we were pretty low on some of these. Very low in some cases.
Mhm. And of course, if there are a lot of violators, then, you can always raise the fee next year, depending upon what the result is.
Well, I mean, you hope that with, I feel like our enforcement's pretty strong, but, sometimes, if the fee is so low that it's not a deterrent, then.
Right.
Yeah, and I think as you guys are just starting your budget meetings, and I know you've done a few already, but as you go, you can always keep this with you and ask questions of the individual departments about like where this money goes or how it's used. You'll see all of these revenue numbers reflected in each of the individual departments' budgets for the most part.
If I recall correctly, we make the decision at the council night.
We could.
That's all I had.
Okay.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is it okay if we sit on this until,
Yeah.
our meeting, until next week?
We'll take it up in detail at the comptroller
Oh, okay.
budget meeting.
We just wanted you to get it in
Yeah,
advance of that meeting so
I
that you're
appreciate
not
that.
just having to do it all at the same time.
And I think the inclusion of the OT will really make a difference.
I think so too. Yeah.
And we already have talked about internally what that plan could look like, and we think that it's going to be successful. So,
Okay, and when will we hear more about that plan and that?
comptroller's office.
Okay.
That night, you'll be talking about parking for a while. So,
Yeah, no, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
So, but thank you for sharing this with us.
if you guys want to save this copy for one of your colleagues.
Yes.
I'll put it, or
Yeah.
give it in some mailbox, unless you really want to.
Well, and Bob too.
I'll keep the other one, and I printed out one at home, so I didn't.
I've got it in the computer,
But it's better in red, yeah.
Better in red. Better red than red.
Okay.
All right, then, we will.
Thank you.
Now we can move on to the clerk's office budget transfer.
Yes.
I know people have been waiting with bated breath.
This is a big one. Actually, John actually brought this to our attention that we would need to make this transfer, and it's to pay for the insurance.
Steve Bill.
And with, did we talk about this bill already, multi-liability?
We talked about it, we have talked about it as some of our general conversations about the budget, and one of the budget pressures is next year that liability insurance is going up in the neighborhood of $300,000. Our insurance is based upon a July to June year, so we're getting hit with half of the increase essentially this year. So that's the need for this transfer here.
At what point is it cheaper for us to just pay for things than to purchase insurance?
It's a dangerous question.
I mean,
Yeah.
just takes one,
Gamble, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of like being self-insured, I don't know that you could ever be self-insured adequately to cover against the, catastrophic type event.
I just mean, the prices are going up so out of whack with, regular inflation, even with the high inflation we had last year.
Well, I think with the city, I mean, it's a combination of inflation and, as you've heard from others, with insurance, it's more so the city's, claims history. So, which would make me nervous about even ever pursuing, just financial self-insurance. I mean, there's been an uptick in claims. I mean, personal injury claims and it's hard to put a price tag on things like that, right?
Yeah.
So, we going back to the insurance, just as a reminder, right? We received a notice of non-renewal from our prior insurer. We ended up switching over to NYMER for this New York municipal insurance, which is, for the upcoming year, but, it was really, I guess the best of two bad choices maybe. So, but no, I feel your pain. I mean, it's definitely tough on a budget. It's, I think, what I'm hearing and seeing with NYMER so far is good in that, they seem to be proactive in working with the city to help reduce our claims exposure going forward. I think that's the real key, is to try to identify the areas in which we're seeing the claims and working on trying to reduce that risk. Trips and falls, and things of this nature. I mean, it's been something.
Does the ambulance venture changes our exposure? Does it not?
It does. I don't know that was named as a major factor in increase, but I'm sure it's another service that we offer. We're transporting patients, right? So.
So are we paying more for insurance than like other cities our size in the state? I guess you're.
I haven't done that analysis. It's just such an individualized, cost, Michael, just because you could have two municipalities of similar size, but it just might depend upon the other factors, like, what's their, what's the property risk? How much property like ours, a portion's property, a portion that's liability. The liability side, what is your liability exposure? What are your assets? It's just really hard to compare it, even if we're able to say, okay, look, and I tend to think we're probably, I would venture to, if I had to guess, if I had to say, I would say if we would probably be on the high side for, I would guess that we're on the high side for our size. However, once you obtain information, what can you do with it? It's really hard to, we know that we need to bring our claims exposure down, right? That's why we're, one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in.
And when we do that, we'll ideally see our insurance costs go down over the course of like the next, is this like a 10-year process, a 5-year process?
I think it's just a gradual process. I don't think it's anything, I don't know that we'll ever see it go down. The goal, it's like anything that's really ever go down. the goal would be to try to minimize increases,
Yeah.
right, going forward. But I think there's just some inherent risk in what we do. We have some unique, without getting into too much detail, opening up. Right,
Situation.
Yeah, without getting into specific, items. But I do think there's some uniqueness to the city of Kingston, why, we have different risk factors. I mean, look, there's certain risk factors that our municipality has, trip and fall. We have those, we have some very nice facilities that we're updating, hopefully that reduces some of the risk. As we're continuing to, put capital into the city and update infrastructure helps. But I think you're always gonna have trip and falls and.
From what I understand, they keep a record of, and when you have events, they're on the record for 5 years. And so they take into account whatever's in that record, going back at least 5 years. So, if we had a huge event, that could cause a spike, and that's then left off. So it is possible for this kind of insurance, at least, to come down some. But that's the problem, is it's been going up out of whack with inflation, so coming down some still is out of whack. Right? So we should all go into insurance. The money is.
Whole city compared to others.
Yeah, they should know, I mean, with the city is, I don't know what other municipalities do, but we've shopped our insurance.
Yeah.
We shop our insurance, we have a very good insurance broker who's helped us shop our insurance with different carriers, so, we're at least getting competitive quotes. Ultimately, it's, the insurer's view of our risk profile, right?
Right.
And for the broker and us finding a new carrier, did we have to go out to bid for that, or is it like just shopping, or is it more like shopping like we would for?
Well,
in our
at
first
one point,
place?
we selected a broker. Trying to remember, I think we've had the same broker I think since I started here, from what I'm trying to recall, it's been a while, 17 years. We've had a third party come in, who's come in and shopped brokers and insurance for us. And we've continually gone back to the same broker. But even when we're not shopping brokers, our broker shops insurance, will shop insurance for us. So, like in this case, our broker helped us get in touch with NYMER. So we had the coverage, but in the past, we've shopped both in the past. We're very satisfied with our broker. I mean, John Dwyer, you probably know John for Marshall Sterling. He's very proactive. He's engaged with us. I don't think it's a broker issue. It's really for the city, a risk profile issue that we really need to improve to get our rates down. Okay. Yeah, I mean, and just, when we have shopped it amongst other brokers, there really hasn't been a reason, financially to make a switch either. So I think, to kind of see where it's at. I don't know that it would, that part of it would matter. We're at a point now where we really need to get the risk profile improved, so we have perhaps more options with carriers as well. Like right now, we're looking at, NYMER was we had two choices, and, one was a severely inflated quote for the prior year plus NYMER, which was a more favorable quote, but still much higher than what we paid the prior carrier. I would like to see our risk profile improve. So, next time we shop, we have, more carrier options.
Can I ask, if we wanted to see a list of claims, would that be easy to get?
Yeah, Lisa could get that, for you through our broker. Yeah, and we've, in the past, have met with our broker to go through claims history just to, see what's there.
But there might be actions we could take that could help with the risk of other claims.
In fact, my follow-up question to that was going to be, knowing what those claims are you aware that the city is sort of taking steps to address them? Or is that something that we should be more proactive about?
I think you should take a look at, if you take a look at the list of the claims, because in some cases, it's, yeah, there's probably things that the city has done to take action, but there's others that are, kind of like one-offs, right? I mean, there's a trip and fall, and, if that hazard is addressed, but there could be a trip and fall somewhere else, right? I mean,
Exactly.
these trip and falls happen anywhere.
Are we looking into hiring a consultant who can do a risk analysis for us?
That topic has not come up, but from what I think starting with NYMER is a good start. I mean, they have come in and have met with the departments to go over, I mean, that was, I don't recall meeting with we've always met with our insurance broker, but I haven't necessarily met with our insurance company. So they came in, recently and met with me, to discuss capital projects and things that we're doing. They went around and met with each department. So I think they're gonna be more proactive with the risk management with us.
Like actually investigating and pointing things out for us?
That I don't know.
Okay,
That I don't know.
because we should, if not, then we should look into doing that, because that might be money well spent. Because it would come back to us and reduce insurance costs.
I'll reach out.
Okay,
There are professionals who do this.
they're professionals who do everything.
There sure are.
Somehow, though, I never heard about it in first grade, and they went around saying, "What do you want to do when you grow up?"
Well, we have some of that baked in with John Dwyerman, that he's not doing a formal study, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's good that the insurance company is being proactive, because of course they want to minimize their own risk too, and pay
Yes.
us, so it
It's
makes
in their
sense.
best interest that helps reduce our risk profile.
Right,
All right,
Okay.
so this committee report reads 100, I'm sorry. The report reads, approve a transfer of $149,693.04 from fund balance to multi-peril liability to cover insurance expenses. We have a motion to approve. Motion. Steve
Second.
Shabbat, second by Sarah Pasty. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Sorry, this went to the wrong place. Sorry, that figure was 149,000?
Yes, 149,
Very
693.04.
Okay. All right, then the next item on the agenda is City Hall electrical features. Did you see the note from John Schulteis that came out just before we started?
I did not, no.
I just saw it. a few
Let
minutes
me-
ago.
Let me read this to you.
Go ahead. Finish reading.
20 minutes ago. It says, regarding City Hall energy efficiency, Steve Shabbat's request. We have replaced nearly all City Hall lighting with LED lamps in 2019. 320 lights were done at this time. This was mainly a conversion from fluorescent lamps to LED. The latest Noresco study, July 2024, identifies additional lighting replacements that could save energy. Of these, it appears the easiest replacements are 37 each are 37 each pendant lamps in the hallways. I'm not sure what that means.
I'm not sure.
I know what that is. Rennie, want me to talk about it.
There's 30, does it mean there are 37 pendant lamps? Or they each cost $37?
No, there's 37 lights.
Okay,
So, but the issue with this, so when we received the communication from Steve Shabbat, I did speak to John Schulteis and asked him to send that email that you're looking at, because this is an issue that we had been discussing for quite some time. So if you look down through the email, some of the things that he pointed out that still have not been corrected, such as the motion detector lights in the bathrooms. With the previous electrician, and I did reach out to him again to make sure my information was accurate. He had started to do some replacements, and when he got to the bathrooms, he discovered that the fixtures themselves cannot be converted to motion detectors. They need to be changed, as well as the wiring. So he had actually started to put together a list of what was needed to make that happen. And then as he finished putting that list together, he ended up leaving the job. So we didn't have an electrician for a little bit of time, and we now have one, but we don't currently have a carpenter. So to change out the wiring, the walls would need to be opened. So we're kind of at a standstill with that part of it. And he also believed that there was pretty much the same issue in the hallways with the lights, meaning that they probably could not be just adapted. So they might need to be changed out themselves, but that would then, with it being a historic building, I'm not quite sure how easy it would be to do that.
Right.
So, but if you look at John Schulteis did send the energy audit that was done, and he said with that, we just with the change to make everything LED, we have a tremendous amount of savings. We don't have switches in the hallways, and that's for safety purposes. People are there all hours of the night and early morning. So we do kind of need to have the hallways lit.
so I believe that you covered the second paragraph, the third paragraph there, so I don't need to read the rest of it.
Lisa, you mentioned a study, and I didn't see a study attached to it.
So it was done by Noresco, which was an energy audit that they did on the building, where they identified where we could make a savings, and it's in his email.
Yeah, it mentions it, I see. But,
Yes.
okay, but the study was not attached, just if he mentioned it. Oh.
Right. We were sent like a punch list of things that we could do to make the building energy efficient. So that's what he's addressing. He said, pretty much most things have been addressed that were on there. The few things that, need work, need an electrician and a carpenter.
Yeah, but I'm not quite sure what direction we're headed. I know he's addressed that. But my concern is there are lights here that have been on continuously since I've been here, which is 12 years, because there are no switches. So is John saying we would have to replace those lights, or we cannot replace those lights? I'm not quite sure.
So what I heard is there's some lights in the hallway that we don't want switches because of the potential for somebody to turn them off and create a disturbance.
But they can't have motion detectors installed?
You can, from what I understood, she said you could, but in order to do that, you have to change the wiring, which means opening up the wall. So you need to have an electrician and a carpenter. right? And then, the other thing is, there's some questions, some of the places, whether you can do that because of the building being historic in nature.
So we don't know.
Some of it we don't know, but Alyssa, you're still working on it, right?
Yeah, we are still working on it. And just the fact that everything has been switched over to LED, we're already seeing a big savings in energy.
Yes, I applaud that was done. And I don't want to beat this to death, but I'm going to take a little stroll down memory lane here. But I want to put out a disclaimer here that the first time I brought this up was when I was brand new as an alderman. So nobody here is involved. Nobody in this administration was there, but I was met with what I would call a little derision when I brought this up at a meeting. And I was too new to know to send a communication. I just brought it up kind of at a finance meeting one night, and then people kind of looked at me like, you know, what is this? You know, this is crazy talk. But now we're 12 years down the road,
Right.
and these lights have been burning for 12 years. Not the same lights, obviously, so that comes into play too. So every couple of years, somebody has to come in here and replace those lights that have been burning. So there's a lot of costs, and I'm not even gonna take a stab at what it would cost, with, the plaster ceilings and walls.
I also, I want to mention,
It's under there.
Steve, I do want to mention that there are many offices that do have motion detector lights currently. So there are, like, not all the offices, but there are many offices that already have that in place.
Okay, and the other thing, maybe it's a little ego trip, but when you're outside, and I noticed this myself, is one of the things I noticed before I became an alderman. I had no reason to be in this building at night, but you can see the bathroom lights are on. You can see it from Broadway. You can see these screens. You can see the blue light from the computer screens on Broadway. I'm quite surprised somebody from the public has not brought this up to us, that we are not practicing what we preach as far as energy conservation. And I think we're pretty aggressive as far as conservation, solar power and things like that, but to have this go on, I'm just shocked that nobody has brought it to our attention. So anyway.
Well, thank you for bringing it up, because now we got this report that lets us know what has happened to this point.
Okay, maybe I'll speak to John about it, just
Yeah.
kind of express my feelings to him. But I didn't see that note, so I didn't think anybody had addressed this already. So.
And
It
the
just came out right before.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the last paragraph says, I'd ask in the short term that the council take no specific action, and staff will continue to pursue efficiency measures that can be accomplished within the operating budget.
Okay.
So in other words, there
Well,
are budgetary consequences
Yes.
to all of this.
Absolutely,
And we
and
need to
that's
find
why
out what that is.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it, because I have no idea what this would cost, and it's.
Yeah.
It might be such a phenomenal cost that, we would never get our money back.
Right, right.
But I know when I was on a rec commission, just a small example, we replaced one bathroom light with a motion detector, and it paid for itself in a year. So, I'm kind of using that as a projection, but, maybe it was not as complicated. I'm sure this is, these kind of things in the bathrooms, I can't even imagine what it would take to accomplish this, but I'll talk to John, and, and I guess he's gonna pursue this, so.
I think it's worth discussing with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We good with that?
Mhm.
All right. John Tui.
Back to you.
Back to me.
Audit. The poor, I think, poor stepchild of our committee here, the audit part.
The audit part. So this was our first audit with the new auditors that we selected with the audit RFP. the audit, in terms of the report, it's not a qualified opinion. It's a clean opinion. I forwarded the council, the confidential management report. I don't think there's anything of note in that report at all. I think in terms of, the city's performance, the audit was fine. The fund balance in the general fund, the total fund balance remains unchanged. They adjusted fund balance between categories. I'm not convinced that they're right, but it wasn't significant enough to argue with them. Different auditors have different interpretations, sometimes different things, but overall, our fund balance in general fund is unchanged from the internal numbers I've been reporting. They just reclassed something from one category of fund balance to another. It was a small dollar amount. But overall, that was fine. Had a little bit of growing pains with the new auditors. We're gonna have next year, I'm hoping it'll go a little smoother. We'll have a new partner on the job for next year, with the audit. We had to push the auditors a little bit this year. I wasn't too pleased with that. And we're running into like timeframe deadlines, and that hasn't been an issue in the past with prior auditors. So I had a conversation with the managing partner of this firm, expressing a little bit of displeasure, and he assured me that things would go smoother next year, and that we would have a new partner on the job next year. So, and there was no arguments. There's no, what had nothing to do with audit issues or opinions or anything like that. It was simply, I have due dates that, I have people breathing down my neck for audits, and, me, my staff, we do everything we can to have our stuff done, ready for our auditors to walk in the door and get the stuff done. So I expect the same. I expect they come in to start the job, finish the job. My staff knows if the auditors need anything, want anything, that is top priority, get them whatever they need. We've always been super responsive to our auditors, so we were pretty much ready for them. Our state reports due May 1st. 90% of what I would need for the auditors is ready on May 1st. Whatever we need to get ready for the audit that's not necessary for the state report, it's usually put together the next couple of weeks after that. But essentially what happened this year is the auditors came in, they did field work, and we didn't hear from them for a few months. And that part of it isn't uncommon, because they'll go from job to job to job to job. We're not their only client, I get it. And then you want it, right? But, and then typically as they're getting back to your work, you'll start getting some follow-up messages. Hey, look, we're wrapping up the audit. We need X, Y, and Z.
Right.
So I wasn't getting that communication. I was getting a little concerned. So I'm like, because I was an auditor, so I kind of know that hey, like it's getting close to this audit report being done, and you were in here doing field work, and you need to provide me that report that you have a copy of. And I know you got to have some questions. So and time's a ticking here. So, based on some emails I sent, ended up talking to the managing partner. So, it was a great presentation. They did a great proposal. The partner who they're switching us to is the partner who's, I believe, in charge of the resource recovery audit. I understand that, that person's pretty engaged. I did meet this partner at GFOA up in Albany. Seems very engaged in, I would say, continuing education, growing his practice, the only way you're going to grow your practice. A younger guy, seemed pretty professional. But if he's out at GFOA, they're out networking, they're trying to get clients. The only way you're going to grow your practice is by having satisfied clients who can now give you recommendations, You're bidding on other work, so
Mhm.
I'm optimistic. Fortunately, when we do these RFPs for the audit, it's a 3-year, I think it's a 3-year commitment.
See, I remember that.
Yeah, so, I'm hoping for a better second year. So,
Okay,
all right.
questions, comments?
Do we vote to accept the audit?
Yeah, I didn't write out the committee report, I just asked that you accept the audit report.
I just had one quick question.
Sure.
So looking through this document, they talk about all the ways in which they, have a limited scope,
Yes,
right? And one of the things here, it says material witnesses or significant deficiencies in internal control over compliance may exist that were not identified. That probably is pretty typical for these kinds of reports, but I just wondered, when they put in that kind of language, what kinds of deficiencies that are not within their scope are they referring to?
what they're telling you, I mean, that's all boilerplate language. Essentially what they're saying is they can't detect everything. They can't detect, they don't design their audits to detect every instance of fraud or malfeasance, or, they're primarily coming in and they're looking at our financial statements to make sure they're in order.
Yep.
They are looking at our internal controls and whether or not they believe our internal controls are working.
Which they
So,
seem to say.
for an example, they'll pull vouchers, they'll look at purchase orders, they'll look at cash receipts, they'll,
Right.
I don't see everything
They do
they're
that-
doing because, I really shouldn't, right? I mean, we give them information and, there's certain,
Yeah.
I get a sense of what they do, right? But,
Yeah,
but if, for an example, if they start looking through vouchers and, wow, this one's not signed off, and this one's not signed off, and this one's not, they might expand their scope and look at more and say, all right, you have an internal control problem, you're paying bills that aren't properly approved.
Yeah.
I mean, right, so that,
mhm.
so they kind of look at things, they start with the internal controls, see if the key internal controls are working.
Mhm.
So they have a report on internal controls. If there was something that was severely lacking, whether it was over federal awards or over just our finances, they would report on that, but, quite frankly, there's only so much they can pick up on
Yeah, because I'm not gonna look at every single, if they do selective testing.
And every auditor, I mean, they all do similar work, but each, this is the 3rd different auditor we've had since I've been here. They're all similar in some ways, but then they're also different. I think it is healthy to switch auditors from time to time. They look at things a little differently. Some are more analytical. Some, they run reports out of the, we give them reports out of the accounting, and then they sort and they're looking for certain things, and then others are more, physical paper, or they might key on certain areas a little bit more than others. But we've had I've been lucky that we've had very good audit firms since I've been here. So,
It's good to hear.
and, quite frankly, the last audit firm that we never had disagreements with them, they were very engaged. It's just, part of the process, so we could, I think under our RFP, I think it's a 3-year commitment. Don't quote me, but I think that we have option for 2 more years, so basically it's like every 5 years. If you're satisfied with your auditor, every 5 years you do an RFP.
Mhm.
I think when I first did the first RFP, I was the first person probably to ever do an RFP for an audit here. I don't know that anyone in the past had ever, it was, if you remember Mary Kimball, right, she had done her audit for probably decades and probably 30 years or more. Could imagine. So we did an RFP early on, and then our last auditor, we had them for 2 cycles. We did an RFP, we brought them on. They merged with another firm, and we did another RFP, and they won that again, and we brought them on. That firm has acquired or merged with, are you familiar with Sickler, Torshell, and Churchill, the firm that got Lake Train? It's across from, do you remember where Joe Ebbs was on the right side? The old State Farm Insurance out in Lake Train past the old Myron building on the left side.
Oh, okay.
Ghosts.
Yeah, Ghost, yeah, so they merged with that firm, they're out in Newburgh. So we were with them for 10 years, they still do other work for us, and we just did this RFP, this is our first year with this firm, so. We're still in the early stages,
Let's see how it goes.
yeah, so. But I can tell you, it's getting tougher to find auditors, and that there's a shortage of auditors right now. There's a shortage. I mean, I hear that from my friends who are in public practice, just hiring staff and just not as many people going into the field.
We're gonna work is after January 20th, there will be no roads anymore.
Well, the education gets in the way. That could go a few different ways.
Yep. Drop a
Yes, sorry.
committee report for us.
So thank you, John.
Right language.
I'd like to thank my staff too. I mean, I do, in the office, but I'm lucky enough to have a staff that, super helpful in getting things together and, making us look good. Quite frankly, I mean, I'm always confident in our numbers and, when we get the auditors and, over my time here, I'm lucky we really haven't had much audit findings or adjustments and.
Johnston, and I'll remind everyone that tomorrow is an exciting meeting of the Finance Committee. We will be looking at the budgets in Parks and Rec, Civil Service, and the Clerk's Office.
Is there something, do we have a hearing or something before?
Not that I know
Not tomorrow.
Good.
of. Let's see, next
Somebody's
week.
having a hearing somewhere, but hopefully it's not
Somewhere,
here.
right.
Let me see.
There's a hearing on the legislature's budget tomorrow.
Oh, there is.
We're discussing their.
Discussing those big raises?
Nerve, huh? Man.
No, I don't see a hearing anywhere on my calendar.
All right, the committee report reads, authorize acceptance of the city's independent audit report for fiscal year ended 12/31/23. Motion to adopt. Motion. Second. You have it. Second by Michael.
It was Drew.
Oh, sorry. Drew, why'd you throw your voice?
Bob.
All right, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Done.
Aye.
Thank you, Alyssa. We're done.
Thank you.
A lot of vouchers there, folks.
Good night.